All right, y'all. We give our praise, esteem, and honor in the name of His only begotten Son, Yahushua HaMashiach. So, it is John chapter 5, verse 39. Get it show on the road. So, search the scriptures, for in them you think you have eternal life. They will testify of me, and you will not come to me that you might have life. I receive not honor from men, but I know you, that you have not the love of Elohim in you. If another come in his own name, him you will receive. How can you believe which receive honor one of another and seek not the honor that comes from Elohim only? Do not think that I will accuse you. There's one that accused you, even Moses, to whom you trust. But had you believed Moses, you would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if you believe not his writings, how should you believe my words? We're going to divert just a tad. We're still taking our journey through the book of, not the book of Proverbs, but the things in Ezekiel. But we have to take a pause because we need to pull off in Ezekiel. I mean, and what we've been looking at, something that we dealt with last week, we won't be able to pull that off out the book of Proverbs as the base point for that. So in that regard, we're going to have to divert, but we're diverting to a verse that we read last week, and that is to keep a theme of what we have been discussing through the book of what we've been looking at through the book of Ezekiel. So let's come over here to Psalms, the 144th division of Psalms. 144th division of Psalms. We'll pick this up at verse 9 in the 144th division of Psalms, and just go from there. So Psalms 144:9. I will sing a new song unto you, O Elohim, upon a psalter and the instrument of 10 strings. Will I sing praises unto you? It is he that gives salvation unto kings, who delivered David his servant from the hurtful sword. I think we mentioned what that word for deliver was. Here it's pasah. So let's take a look at that. And that's the part to separate, to part, open, separate, or set free. And we have pay, sod, and hay. So when we look at that we see that the words of Yahushua is the way. Let's take a reason why we sit back and say that. Let's take a look at John chapter 8, and I didn't bring my book over here. My apologies. Give me one. Let's take a look at John chapter 8. I want to see about verse 32. Might be 44. Let's see. I'll see which one it is. I think it's going to be the latter and not the former that I desire. Yeah, about 42. I said 32, but it's really 42. Let's look at John chapter 8 and verse 42. Yahushua said unto them, if Elohim were your Abba, you would love me, for I proceed forth and come from Elohim. Neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Let's pause. Let's go to Isaiah 51 just for a moment. Because we're going to revisit a verse in Psalms 144 to deal with the concept that we discussed last week about conforming. So we have to look at that conforming, because that's very important in the context of the things that we discussed in in Ezekiel 34, the things that we'll discuss in Ezekiel 36, the things that we'll discuss in Ezekiel 37, for what we discuss in Ezekiel 38, even be prevalent and relevant to you. So they can't even be relevant to you if you have not conformed. Remember what we mentioned about the woman is supposed to conform to the man, because that's a similitude of you conforming to Yahuwah. Nevertheless, Isaiah 51:7, I believe. 51:4, actually. 51:4. Isaiah 51:4. Hearken unto me, O my people, give ear unto me, O my nation, for a Torah shall proceed from me. I will make my judgment to rest for a light of the people. Let's take a pause. Let's look at this word for proceed, because if we look at that deliver, it's to set apart or to set free, is patsah. And we're going to go back. Y'all should know what's clicking in John chapter 8, what comes from that. And this is the matter we're dealing with. He said Torah or instructions are proceeding from him. So in order to conform, instructions have to be given for you to know what you're conforming to. And we're going to look at what the Hebrew equivalent for conform in Greek is, and we'll gain more understanding. But give me a moment to get this word to proceed. Pardon my slowness. Now, when we got proceed there, of course, you know, we have that side, which is to go out or to exit or to go forward or to come out or to be brought forth or to lead out. And of course, you know, you got yod, sod, and olive. So we sit back and look at that. The strength of the head or the strength of the leader or the strength of the ox is the way. That's the way that we are. See, pause. You have to grab the verse. But remember what the prophet Jeremiah told us, that we ought to seek the ancient paths. But we said we refused and said we will not walk therein. Because he said if we sought the ancient paths, we would find rest for our souls. Yahushua told those people during his time repeatedly to follow him. Many chose not to do so. Well, why did they not choose to do so? Because of the fact that they did not believe of the word that was proceeding from him. Because remember, he said, if he was your Elohim, you would love me because I proceed forth and come from him. Just a manifestation of the living word. But let's continue. Verse 5. My righteousness, this is Isaiah the 51st chapter. My righteousness is near. My salvation is gone forth. My arm shall judge the people. The owl shall wait upon me, and on my arm shall they trust. Something real quick, like. Now, isn't it always funny how he's mentioning that the Isles or these Gentiles were trusting him? That's another conversation for another time. He say, lift up your eyes to the heavens and look upon the earth beneath, for the heavens shall vanish away like smoke, the earth shall wax old like a garment, and they that dwell therein shall die like manna. But my salvation shall be forever, and my righteousness shall not be abolished. Hearken unto me, you that know righteousness, the peoples in whose heart is my Torah. Fear you not the reproach of men, neither be afraid of their reviling. Notice that he said, listen to him, those that know righteousness. I was talking to a dude that I grew up with, went to school with, you know what I'm saying? I think he go to Impact Church, if I'm not mistaken. He was conversing with another brother that we went to school with as well, who know he a brute and is in the conventional train of thought when it comes to that. They were having a conversation about the law. Why was it given? We know why it was given, because we know it was given because of transgression, because Adam and Eve disobeyed. They did not follow the instruction given from Yahuwah in regards to not partaking in it, and therefore sin was imputed. So therefore law is imputed. We know that the law is not for the righteous, but for the lawless and disobedient. Now he was saying, and our other homeboy was getting misunderstood, probably because he's a Christian, so he's thinking that what his frame of thought was. His frame of thought is the same frame of thought that we hold. The law is not your justifier, nor is it your redeemer. That just because you say that does not mean that you condone lawlessness or transgression. You know what I'm saying? You don't condone that. That's why he said, hearken or listen or obey or adhere those of you who know righteousness or those who know faith. That's why he said, come back to John chapter. See, those that know faith will conform. Back to John 8:42. That's why he said, I'll take up a new song. Remember we talked about that. You know, the law and the prophets was still John. Now the kingdom of Shamahim was preached, and all men are pressed into it. John 8:42. Yahushua said unto them, Elohim, with your Abba, you would love me, for I proceed forth and came from him. I neither came I of myself, but he sent me. Why do you not understand my speech? Even because you cannot hear my word. That takes us back to what we got in Isaiah 51. They can't understand because they can't hear. They can't hear because they don't believe. See, pause. Hebrews chapter 4. Hebrews 4:1. Let us therefore fear, lest the promise being left of us entering into his rest, any of you should seem to come short of it. For unto us was the gospel preached, as well as unto them. But the word preached did not profit them, not being mixed with the faith in them that heard it. For we which believe do enter into rest, as he said, I've sworn in my wrath, if they shall enter into my rest, although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. For he spake in a certain place on the seventh day on this wise, and Elohim did rest the seventh day from all his works. And this place again, if they shall enter into my rest. And he's consistently referring to Psalm 95. Seeing therefore that it remained that some must enter therein, and they to whom it was first preached entered not in because of unbelief. And he limited a certain day, saying in David, today, after so long time as it said, today if you will hear his voice, harden not your hearts, for if Yahushua son of Nun had given them rest, then he would not have afterwards have spoken of another day. There remained therefore rest to the people of Elohim, for he that is entered into his rest, he is also ceased from his own works, as Elohim did from his. So let's pause. Let's go all the way live with it if we're going to talk about it. We talked about this somewhat last week, dealing with immersion in the regards of being born again. We talked about it on last Shabbat in the regards of Hanukkah, or the dealing with the fact of that Hanukkah is the dedication of the temple, the consecration of the temple. So he said, you should cease from your works like Elohim did from here. Oh, that's how you're going to have to conform in the similitude of that image. Let's take a look. Genesis chapter 2. We're going to have to look at it, right? We're going to have to bring all type of stuff to your remembrance that I know most of y'all already know, because that's how much confidence I had that you already know. But if you don't remember, I ain't going to say that you already know, but that you remember. That's a better choice of word, that you remember. Make sure I'm in the right spot. All right, here we go. Genesis 2:1. But if you don't remember, we'll bring it back to your remembrance. Genesis 2:1. Thus the Shamahims and the rats were finished, and all the host of them. And on the seventh day, Elohim ended his work which he had made, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work which he had made. Elohim baruched the seventh day and sanctified it, because that in it he rested from all the work which Elohim created and made. Let's take a look at that. Let's go on back to Genesis chapter 2. Y'all just bear with me. If we're going to deal with conforming to his image, and we're going to have to take it bit by bit, piece by piece, and add every single solitary thing that Yahuwah allows us to be able to look at. Of course, we'll have to look at Exodus 31 behind this Genesis chapter 2 for the totality of context. Now, of course, we have here is Shabbat for rested. I will wait till most of you are already aware of that. You have Shan, Bat, and Ta. Cease or desist, rest. Notice that it says to rest or desist from labor. Cease and shalom, man. Cease and desist from labor. Now, let's not be common. When I say common, being regular and thinking like the average brew, if he said that you ought to cease from your works as Elohim did from his. Now, what was Elohim's works? It was creating. What are your works? See, pause. Let's get a full understanding now. Let's sit back and let's gather and see what the word says. Let's go to Ecclesiastes 7, verse 27. Ecclesiastes 7:27. We come right back to Genesis chapter 2. We still holding John chapter 8. We are completed in Isaiah 51. We are completed in Hebrews chapter 10. But we just holding John chapter 8. And Psalms 144. And Psalms 1. Yes. Ecclesiastes 7. Well, not 27, straight to 29. We don't need 27, 28. No, that's unnecessary. Ecclesiastes 7:29. Lo, this only have I found. The Elohim has made man upright, but they have many inventions. You sought out many plots, plans, and inventions. Yahuwah didn't make you in that fashion. You told us, I'm going to go do what I want to do. See, let's slide over here. Y'all see, if you know me, you know what we're finna grab. Just go ahead and get Ecclesiastes 8 and 11. You know what? Back it up to verse 6. You know what? Make it 5. Screw it. Make it verse 4. Ecclesiastes 8 and 4. We're going to bring stuff to remember. We might as well bring it all. Remember we was looking at that he said he delivered the king from death. That's Pat Sod, recall? The pay, the sod, and the hay. That pay in that word. So that word is what delivered, or that word is what sets apart. So if you're going to cease and desist, you're going to cease and desist according to the word of Elohim. See, we just, like I told you before, see, most of us just look at the Sabbath. We know this years ago. Just coming to my mind right now. Now that I talk about it, about, are you really keeping the Sabbath? See, most brews think the Sabbath just lay up at the house, sleep, slobbing, this, that, and the third. And that's not that what it was created for. It was a day created for the specific purpose for the hearing of the words of the living Elohim. Not you been working all week and you get to sleep in and do this, that, and the third. That's man stuff. You go back and look in the text. You go back and look in history and see what they did. They honored and reverenced Yahuwah for the entirety of the day. And we complain about 2-3 hours. Can't stay focused for 2-3 hours. Those people were out there when they were actually doing what he said for 8 to 12 hours. You know what I'm saying? For 8 to 12 hours. Because that was the purpose. You have a whole day that the day alone's purpose is for you to gain understanding of your God. And he knows that. He knows that you're human. See, we're going to deal with that. I'm away. This man already know. You got 6 days, you moving and shaking this, that, and the third. And you should meditate on his Torah day and night. But he knows the frame of man. He knows how man operates. He knows what this man going to need a whole day to himself. You supposed to sit back, look at how you see he cease and desist from his works as you supposed to stop doing yours or your own desires. Because them your works you out there doing. And if you can understand that, you can understand being born again and your temple being dedicated. Then you can really understand what it means to keep the Sabbath. Then you can really understand what it means when Yahushua kept the Sabbath, if you will. But we'll bring that back to your remembrance in a moment. Ecclesiastes 8 and 4. Where the word of the king is, there's power. And who may say unto him, what do you? See, you got to understand that. Remember that word, that's why I say he put the word in your heart and your inward parts. Because where the word of the king is, there's power. That's power over death. Remember, I told y'all this recently. I don't want to say vehemently, but I guess that's what you can say. If somebody telling you that Yahushua came to redeem you from the curse of Deuteronomy 28, it would behoove you to depart from that person. Because you just ran across a person who is unlearned, ignorant, or just truly devoid of wisdom and understanding. It would be best for you to divest yourself from that situation and circumstance. Nevertheless, whoso keep the commandments shall feel no evil thing, and a wise man's heart discern both time and judgment. You know what I'm saying? Now we just talked about that. Who keep the commandment? Paul. 1 John chapter 4. Is it chapter 4? I think it's 1 John chapter. It might be chapter 3. Let's look. He say, he that keep the commandment ain't gonna feel no evil thing. Well, let's look at it then. Let me make sure that it is chapter 3, I believe. It is. 1 John chapter 3, verse 13. Bird. You being loud. Oh, that's not no. Sire. My apologies, sir. Sire. You're making too much noise. My apologies, sir. You're right, and you're correct. And that's why I said my apologies, sir. What did I just ask you? And you turn right around and do it. You're hard-headed and stuff. There's no need for that. That's why you find yourself in situations and circumstances that are not pleasing to you because you don't hearken, because you think that things don't apply to you or people plan with you. I would prefer that you don't find yourself in situations that are not pleasing to you. Clearly, you have to learn the hard way. Don't stick your lip out, and no need to crock up your face. I'm not yelling at you, nor am I about to strike you. So for you to sit there to start crying is a means that you think that I would be moved by your tears or your sad face, and I genuinely just don't. Thank you. 1 John 3 and 13. Marvel not, my brethren, if the world hates you. We know that we have passed from death unto life because we love the brethren. He that love not his brother abide in death. Now remember, we already read that in Isaiah 51. He said, don't worry about their revilings. If you listening to him because you know righteousness, you wouldn't even be concerned with what they talking about. It don't mean nothing to you. Whosoever hate his brother is a murderer. You know that no murderer have eternal life abiding in him. Hereby perceive we the love of Elohim, because he laid down his life for us. Keep that in mind. We ought to lay down our lives for the brethren. But whoso have this world's goods and see his brother have need and shut up his bowels of compassion from him, how dwell the love of Elohim in him? My little children, let us not love in word, neither in tongue, but in deed and in truth. And hereby we know that we are of the truth, and shall assure our hearts before him. For if our heart condemn us, Elohim is greater than our heart and know all things. That's what we look back and see in Genesis. Their hearts condemned them. That's why they went and hid. See, that's a lot of people's problem out here in the world, where their hearts don't condemn them. A lot of people don't have no problem with the stuff that they got going on. None. And I ain't even talking about somebody in the world, because that's to be expected. He say, beloved, if our heart condemn us not, then we have confidence towards Elohim. And whatsoever we ask, we shall receive of him, because we keep his commandments and do those things that are pleasing in his sight. And this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his son, Yahushua HaMashiach, and love one another as he has gave us commandment. And guess what? That takes us right back to that, to deliver and see that faith, because that's the commandment, believe his son. He said, this is my beloved son, from whom I'm well pleased. Hear him. He told them, Shema, listen to him. Whether individuals do it or not, that's their own prerogative. Back to Ecclesiastes chapter 8. So when you see that you won't feel no evil thing, because he said, whosoever live and believe in him shall never taste death. You believe that? He the resurrection and the life. And then because you have skill, you'll be able to discern the time and when the judgment coming. See, a lot of these people ain't wise. That's why they discern incorrectly when things occur in the world at this present time. Not wise men, but that's another conversation for another time. Verse 6 of the 8th chapter of the book of Ecclesiastes. Because every purpose there is time and judgment, therefore misery of man is great upon him. For he know not that which shall be. For who can tell him when it shall be? You don't know what's going to happen. And you don't know when it's going to happen. Make your misery great. The difference with that, the Lord knew what was going to happen and when it was going to happen. He knew. Yes, that's why are you giving that to me? It does not belong to your mother. Hey. Verse 8. There is no man that hath power over the Ruach to retain the Ruach, neither have power in the day of death. There's no discharge in that war, neither shall the wickedness deliver those that are given to it. Oh man. Them strong word, right? But let's look at that, because someone did have power in that war. Someone did have power in that war. I remember you had Shabbat and Tau when we were dealing with Shabbat. So of course, we have how the son pairs you to a covenant. So so a lot of people, if you're not paired to the covenant of the son, then what Shabbat you keeping? See, a lot of them like to poke at Christians because of this, that, there, and the third. They say, Jesus is our Sabbath, and this, that, there, and stop. It's not the time for that. Time and place for everything, and it's not the time for that. You play. And he is. If you understand that if you're not paired to the covenant, then you don't have rest. Pause. What did he say in Isaiah 57, everybody? There's no rest to the wicked. So if we haven't been born again, then we don't have the Ruach. And if we don't have the Ruach, then we don't belong to Yahushua, which means we don't belong to Elohim, which means you don't have no rest. Which means if you don't have rest, you don't have the covenant. And if you don't have the covenant, then you would be an enemy of Yahuwah, which would make you wicked. There's no salvation to the wicked. Why is there no salvation to the wicked? Because they don't cease and desist. Let me see what the word rest is in that Isaiah 57. Let's see what word. Well, no, it just say no shalom. It's another place where it says no rest to the wicked. No, y'all willing to come back. Ain't no rest for the wicked. They don't get no rest because they don't cease and desist. If you want rest, you have to cease and desist, like we read in Hebrews 4. That those who attain rest cease and that takes us back to what we discussed in Yahushua Son of Noon, chapter 24, and verse 14. To leave over there on the side of the gods that your fathers worshipped in Egypt, on the other side of the flood. You got to cease and desist. See, a lot of people, that's what we were talking about when you put him through an open shame, is because you're not ceasing and desisting. How can you say you tired of the life that you've been living, the decisions that you've been making, but yet you don't cease and desist from making them? Pause. Hebrews chapter 9. So one of the first aspects we're dealing with this evening in regards to being after the similitude of Elohim, or be conforming into his image, is the ability to cease and desist from your labor. Notice your labor, not his labor, your labor. Because he stopped from his labor, and that's supposed to be an example for you to stop from yours. Hebrews 9, verse 11, I suppose. Hebrews 9 and 11. But Hamashiach becoming a high priest of good things to come by a greater and more perfect tabernacle, not made with hands, that is to say, not of this building. Neither by the blood of goats and of calves, but by his own blood he entered in once into the Kadash place, having obtained eternal redemption for us. For the blood of bulls and goats and the sprinkling and the ashes of an heifer, sprinkling the unclean, sanctified to the purifying of the flesh, how much more shall the blood of Hamashiach, who through the eternal Ruach offered himself without spot to Elohim, purge your conscience from dead works to serve the living Elohim. Remember what we read the other day in Romans chapter 6? What profit do you have in those things that you are now ashamed? The same things we read in Ezekiel 36. Pause and consider. Weigh and think. Are we ceasing from all words? Let's go back where we was at. My pen is no longer there. Ecclesiastes 8. Just look at something in Ecclesiastes 8, man. I won't go too far over the time like last week. God willing, right? That's not the intent. Is we take a time. And then we'll get back to regularly scheduled programming. But who are willing this week, we have to take a diversion, which is really not a diversion, but really more so a more in-depth insight into something that we already over the. I want you to look at this word for power and listen to what it is. It's shalet, and it means to have mastery, domineering, master. The characters there you have is Shan, Lamat, Yod, and Tet. Now that's interesting because when it says that no man have mastery over the Ruach to retain the Ruach, oh no. Does any one of you have any idea what that could be conveying to us when he's telling us that you don't have the mastery? Nobody has mastery over the Ruach to retain. Let's take a look at some of these characters while we at it. First thing we'll want to grab here is we're going to look at Tet first. And I'll read it off for everybody. Grandma, you don't what me? A basket to surround, to contain, to store, to give in secrecy, a snake in generosity. So if we look at having mastery, can we look at mastery over the snake? Is that possible for something that we would want to say? Would we want to sit back and look at that we've been contained? Or we do contain? Let's continue and look at the rest of the things. Indeed, he does. Indeed, he does. But see, I'm leading in the sun. But indeed, he does. That's true story. Now we got Yod in there too, right? So we have work and actions. So we're going to take that word, actions, and deeds in that fashion and say, hey, maybe you got contain to contain, and you got these works, and now you got this lamad. So now you got teachings and shepherd and rod and things of this nature. And then you have Sean, which we're going to use consume, because you're not going to be paired to anything if we're looking at mastery. So what we'll say here is this is where we'll look at the snake and see how the snake is consumed by the works of the shepherd. This is how this occurs, because no man have power to retain the ruach, neither have he power in the day of death. Let's look at power in that regard. Now, it's a different word here for power up under here, and that is shaitan or shilton, which again means mastery. So you have Sean, Lamar, Tet. Now you bring in U and Noon in that regard. So again, we see how the snake has been consumed by the shepherd, and this has secured life. I want you to look at mastery. Let's come over here. I want to say, hold on, that's not what I need. I want to say 1 Corinthians chapter 9, but something is telling me 1 Corinthians chapter 9 is not what I desire. 1 Corinthians chapter 9 is what I desire. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. Let me ask you a question, sir. Sir, come here. Where should you be drinking your beverage? Where should you be drinking your beverage? Where should you? In the kitchen, sir. Grab your beverage. Okay. 1 Corinthians chapter 9. I'll pick it up at verse 22. Matter of fact, I pick it up at verse 14. 1 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 14. We'll make it 13 because that's going to give all the context in this regard. Do you not know that they which minister about Kadesh things live of the things of the temple? And they which wait at the altar are partakers with the altar? Now, we kind of talked about that a little bit and go into detail and great duty last week. But if you serve the temple and that temple is Yahushua, and that means you minister about it, you serve set apart things, that means you ought to be set apart as well. And if you're joined to the altar, we looked at a little bit in Numbers chapter 7 that the altar has been set apart. You have to be set apart as well. Now, he's talking about preachers in this regard, but let's continue. Even so have the Lord ordained that they which preach the gospel should live of the gospel. But I have used none of these things, neither have I written these things, that it should be done so unto me. For it would be better for me to die than any man should make my esteem void. For though I preach the gospel, I have nothing to esteem of. For necessity is laid upon me. Yea, woe is unto me if I preach not the gospel. See, that's what a lot of individuals don't realize. You don't got none of the glory of for preaching the word, because necessity or a duty, a burden, aka a responsibility, has been granted at your feet. Now, we also be taking that in this regard, dealing with conforming to get off of that. And similitude of marriage in the regard of, if a man takes a wife, same way that Yahushua took a wife, then there's necessity laid upon you, or responsibility has been laid upon you. But let's continue. He said, for if I do this thing willingly, I have a reward. But if against my will, a dispensation of the gospel is committed unto me. What is my reward then? Truly that when I preach the gospel, I make the gospel of a Mashiach without charge, that I abuse not my power in the gospel. For though I be free from all men, yet I have made myself a servant unto all, that I might gain the more. Now notice what he said, right? I've made myself free from all men, because I'm no longer in subjection of the service of the flesh or the desires of men. But he said, but even with that regard, I've made myself to be a minister unto men, or to serve men, that somebody might be saved. A man has to sit back and look at what we were discussing on Saturday, and what we discussed in the past, that the man has dominion over the wife or the woman or the rule, and that he that rules amongst men must be just. So knowing that you have that ability, you make yourself a servant unto them. And remember, we talk about that because the king serves, and there's a difference between the service of the man to the woman and the service of the woman to the man. But in that regard and in that purpose, that allows you to gain her. Remember what the Mashiach told us, that he did not come to be served, but he came to serve and pay a ransom for many. Let's continue. Verse 20, and unto the Yahudim I became as a Yahudim, that I might gain the Yahudim. To them that are under Torah as under Torah, that I might gain them that are under Torah. To them that are without Torah as without Torah, not being without the Torah to Elohim, but under the Torah to Hamashiach. What does he say? What does he mean by this here? Not those who didn't know the law, but those who didn't know the gospel. But what is he telling you? That means he adapted what he taught to benefit who he was teaching. I've told y'all this before. Great coaches. I just seen this what the coach who they just hired for the Panthers said. You don't teach somebody in the fashion how you want them to learn. You don't put them in positions that you want them to be in if that's their weaknesses. You find out their strengths, or you find out what it is that they know and what it is that they do, and you focus and you build upon that. When you focus and you build upon that, then that person can begin to have success, and then you can add more things on their plate. If you don't do that, all you're going to do is destroy morale. You're going to destroy morale, and it's not going to cause the... Man, my homeboy told me yesterday, man, brother he was talking to this young woman, the young woman say, I'm intrigued because of the faith and trust you have in your God. He had to won the woman right then. And this young man in his ignorance decided to go tell her about how she was the weaker vessel, as it was stated in 1 Peter chapter 3, when he wasn't even talking to the woman. He was talking to the man, that the man would need to know how to dwell with her according to knowledge, knowing that she's weaker than him. And in doing that, that woman looked at him and said, well, if, after she looked over at whatever he had showed her and said, well, what purpose do I have to you? He had to ruin her and destroy her. And this woman didn't believe in you. This woman was intrigued to serve you based off the level of faith that she's seen in this man. And that if he would have understood that he should have came at her in the fashion where she was at in order to gain her, then that wouldn't have even happened. So you have to look at that. That 1 Peter 3:7 ain't talking to no woman. You don't sit down with no woman and say, woman, you the weaker vessel. He was talking to you, the man. Why would he tell the woman that? What does that matter? Why would he tell the woman, man need to dwell with you according to knowledge? What does that benefit her? What can she do with that information? She can't do nothing with that information. The man has to do something with the information because he the one got to dwell with her according to the knowledge of Elohim. To know how to be able to operate with that weaker vessel. So that comes around with us, so we have to know that. We went over this before in the past, indefinitely at that. I just don't think that a majority of it recorded. If my memory served me correctly and served me well, I believe it does. But you have to understand that. You have to understand that fashion that you're supposed to dwell with this woman the same way that Yahuwah dwelt with us. Same thing, no difference. And conduct yourself in the same fashion, because this is what's supposed to be manifested. But we'll be getting into that more y'all willing, and when the Shabbat arrives. I'm in verse 22. So the weak became I as weak, that I might gain the weak. I am made all things to all men, that I might by all means save some. And this I do for the gospel's sake, that I might be a partaker thereof with you. Know you not that they which run a race run all, but one receive the prize, or run that you may obtain. Every man that strives for mastery is temperate in all things. So if you strive to have mastery, then you have self-control over everything. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. So let's look at that. Because Yahushua called to have mastery. Luke chapter 22. And in that regard, he was able to deliver you. He said there's no discharge in that war. You don't have power to retain the Ruach. You don't have power in the day of death. That word for discharge in that is to send away or discharge, clearly, and that is mishlakaf. We're not going to go through all those characters right now. Y'all will be very well may return to it. But on the Shabbat. But Luke chapter 22. Because I got to crank it up a notch. It's already 8:10. Look at Luke 22. And let's look at something what the Lord told his apostles. Let me make one in the right spot. What I need. Luke 22 and 25 is sufficient. And he said unto them, the kings of the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and they that exercise authority upon them are called benefactors. But you shall not be so. But he that is greatest among you, let him be as the younger, and he that is chief, as he that do serve. Whether is greater, he that sit at meat or he that serve. It's not he that sit at meat, but I am among you as he that serve. You are they which continue with me in my temptations. Now notice he said that they continued with him in his temptations. Let's just look at the Greek word for temptation. Let's just see what it means. And that's just for clarity's sake. That's just for information. The word here is an experiment, an attempt, a trial, proving. Listen to that. You're being tried, you're being proved. When you get in your temptations, it's to prove you. Go to Deuteronomy 8 and we'll get the Hebrew word for it. And from Deuteronomy 8 and 1 to Psalms 26. Deuteronomy 8 and 1. We good in Luke chapter 22. All the commandments which I command you this day you shall observe to do, that you may live, multiply, go in, and possess the land which Yahuwah swore unto your fathers. And you shall remember all the way which Yahuwah your Elohim led you these 40 years in the wilderness, to humble you and to prove you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. And he humbled you and suffered you to hunger, and fed you with manna, which you knew not, neither did your fathers know, that he might make you to know that man do not live by bread alone, but by the word that proceed out of the mouth of Yahuwah, do man live. Let's look at the Hebrew word for prove. And it is nasah, to test, to prove, to an attempt, to put to proof. Noon, samat, and hay. Simple as this. Just grab hold to the seed of life of Yahushua HaMashiach. Just grab hold to that if you want to be able to endure. Because what did he tell you to do? What Danes told you? Let's look at James chapter 1. Look at what he did. This is how Yahushua was able to win that discharge, to have that win that battle that particular day. Same way that you'll be able to win that battle in this day. The epistle of the Apostle James, chapter 1 and verse 12. The epistle of the Apostle James, chapter 1, verse 12. Blessed is the man that endured temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life, which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of Elohim, for Elohim cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempt he any man. Say, Elohim ain't going to try you with no evil. He ain't going to test you with none either. He ain't going to do it. So don't you open your mouth and say he did it. But every man is tempted when he's drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust have conceived, it bring forth sin, and sin, when it finished, bring forth death. Do not err, my beloved brother. So notice that go back to you ceasing from your works. Because you were enticed to do this of your own desire, the same way that Yahuwah desired to create the heavens and earth and put man upon it. So don't compare your desires to his. Because if you don't desire him according to his word, then that's your stuff, which will go back to what we read in Ecclesiastes 7. Man sought out many inventions. He made you upright. So don't you lay that on him. Take responsibility for yourself. I take you back to where I told you that Mashiach was made of flesh and blood according to the seed of Abraham, and was tempted just like we are, yet without sin. I mean, his desire was his father's desire. He desired to do his father's work and not his own. See, he was keeping the Shabbat whole time he was alive, and neither didn't even realize it. You could be keeping the Shabbat. When sometimes even some people ignorantly say, I keep the Shabbats every day. And they just say that as a means because they just don't want to observe the seventh day to give acknowledge, honor, praise that is due to Yahuwah and sit down and learn of his word. But you're supposed to be keeping Shabbat every day you're alive. If you had been immersed in the death of a Mashiach, you keeping Shabbat because you done cease and desisted from your own words. You done cease and desisted. That's the purpose of being born again. That's a cease. Don't you realize baptism, truth be told, is what people do in copyright problems and send a cease and desist letter? Baptism is a cease and desist letter to your conscience and to your flesh. I have ceased and desisted from going about my own heart, my own way. Nevertheless, I think we're good. Let me get this Psalm 26. Come on around here, Psalm 26. 6 and 1, if you would. Judge me, O Yahuwah. This is Psalm 26 and 1. For I have walked in my integrity. I have trusted also in Yahuwah. Therefore, I shall not slide. Look at what he said. I trusted in Yahuwah. I ain't going to slide. You think if you trust in Yahuwah, you're going to slide? That word for slide is ma'ad, and that's to shake. To totter, to waver, to be double-minded, to go between two opinions. Examine me, O Yahuwah, prove me, try my reins and my heart. Now let's look at that word for examine, because it said he's asking for Yahuwah to examine him. The word for examine is bakan, and it's to examine to prove, or to try of gold, or to take you through the fire. By cotton noon, if you wanted to know, see how the sun separates under life. I'll give you the word for reins, at least the definition, if you're not going along yourself, or to try, which is saraf, which is to refine or to test. So what is this referring to or taking us through? And of course, the reins is kilyah, or your seat of your emotion and your affections, the furnace of affliction, if you will. Loving kindness is before my eyes, I've walked in the truth. I've not sat with vain persons, neither will I go in with dissemblers. Give you the definition of dissemblers. That is alarm. That is people who hide things, who conceal themselves, who do things in secret. Vain, of course, is shab, and those are people who deal with falsehood and things of worthless matters. I've hated the congregation of evildoers, and I will not sit with the wicked. I will wash my hands in innocency, so I will accomplish your altar, O Yahuwah, that I may publish with the voice of thanksgiving and tell of all your wondrous works. Yahuwah, I love the habitation of your house and the place where your honor dwells. Gather not my soul with sinners, nor my life with bloody men, whose hands is mischief and the right hand is full of bribes. But as for me, I will walk in my integrity. Redeem me and be merciful unto me. My foot stand in an even place in the congregations will I bless Yahuwah. And Yahuwah will, and we'll revisit this on the Sabbath. But notice what it is to be tested. That's that furnace of affliction. That's how you're going to be able to be conformed. But nevertheless, we'll get to that, y'all willing, on the Sabbath as well. Back to Ecclesiastes chapter 8. So when we look at it in that regard, and we can grab Hebrews chapter 2, and you can grab Hebrews 2 by verse 12 and read it for yourself to the conclusion of that particular chapter. Let it say, he had power to destroy him that had power over death, that is the devil. Yahushua was the only one who had power to retain the Ruach, because he said no man. Remember, Yahushua told you in the 10th chapter of John that he lay his life down and no man take it from him, but he lay it down of himself, and his Abba gave him power to pick it up again. And he had power in the day of death, because he said, Abba, into your hands I commend my Ruach. And he told him, destroy this tabernacle, destroy this house, and I'll build it back up in 3 days. So now you're supposed to know that you have power to retain the Ruach, and you have power in the day of death, and that is through Yahushua HaMashiach. And that's what my homeboy was trying to tell our other homeboy when we were discussing that. That really the power is with the Lord. You don't really have any power without him. You don't have power because you're an Israelite. You don't have power because you keep the laws. They don't give you no power because he told you to believe on his son. He commanded you to have faith first. So if you don't have that, you don't have anything. That's why I say, with the word of the king, there is power. Because faith comes by hearing, and hearing comes by the word. And Shema, O Yahshua, Yahuwah, your Elohim is one. And if you ain't on that, you really ain't on nothing. Truth be told, you ain't on nothing. You just a nigga masquerading. Truth be told, you just an individual who's gonna kill the righteous in the last days. But that's neither here nor there. Verse 9 of Ecclesiastes chapter 8. All this have I seen and applied my heart unto every work that is done under the sun. There's a time when one man rule over another to his own hurt. And so I saw the wicked buried who had come and gone from the place of the Kadash. They were forgotten in the city where they had so done. This is also vanity. Because the sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily, therefore the hearts of the sons of men is fully set in them to do evil. And though a sinner do evil 100 times and his days be prolonged, yet surely I know it shall be well with them that fear Elohim, which fear before him. But it shall not be well with the wicked, neither shall he prolong his days, which are as a shadow, because he feared not Elohim. So you gotta understand that. Since that work don't get executed, you feel like you can do whatever. Like ain't no pressure. Ain't no pressure. I can do what I want. Ain't nothing gonna happen. Notice he says it's the hearts of the sons of men to do evil. Same thing he said in Genesis chapter 6. These your works. Exodus 31. We still got John 8, Psalm 144. This all this here just to set the foundation. We good in Genesis chapter 2. Here's a couple other things, but I'll mention it right now. I suppose versus going through it. We better out at the time. Exodus 31 and 13 and 12. Yahuwah spake unto Moses, saying, Speak you also unto the sons of Yasharal. Truly my Shabbat you shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I am Yahuwah, that do sanctify you. Keep that in mind. You shall keep Shabbat, therefore. It is Kadash unto you. Everyone that defile it shall surely be put to death. For whosoever do any work therein, that his soul shall be cut off from among his people. 6 days may work be done, but in the seventh is Shabbat of rest. Kadash to Yahuwah, whosoever do any work in the Shabbat, he shall surely be put to death. Wherefore the sons of Yasharal shall keep Shabbat, to observe Shabbat throughout their generations for a perpetual covenant. It is a sign between me and the sons of Yasharal forever. For in 6 days Yahuwah made Shamahim and a rest. On the seventh day he rested and he was refreshed. Let's look at refreshed. Y'all remember, of course, rested is Shabbat. Refreshed is Nafash. To take breath. To refresh oneself. Notice that it says to take breath. To take breath. Sit there and think about that for a moment. He said you should remember it because he took breath on that day. Now just pause while we sit there and think about that. Let's look at another instance and something that stood out. Well, there's scripts that were coming to my head, I should say. Let's just go ahead and roll with it. Let's go to Matthew 26 first and foremost. Matthew 26 to Genesis 49, and from Genesis 49 to Luke 23, excuse me. Matthew chapter 26 and 1, if you would. From 26 and 1, we'll drop down. And it came to pass when Yahushua had finished all these things, he said unto his disciples, that you know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover, and the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. Now, of course, we know in numerous other locations that Yahushua told his apostles that the chief priests and scribes would kill him. They would kill him. Now, if you recall Shabbat, Shan, Ba, and Tau. So we're looking at, we know that there's a covenant that's been made in place, put in place. So that's what he just said. The Shabbat was a sign between you and him. He said, if you do any work on the Shabbat, you're going to defile it. So if that bot is in there, you see that sun is there, which takes us back, or you can say the son of the house of the sun, which takes us back to what we read in Ezekiel 44 and 43 about the laws of the house and how we were looking at all the people who come up to the house in Jerusalem in the mountain and learn of Yahuwah. But nevertheless, drop down in Matthew chapter 26, verse 55. Not 55, excuse me, 51. And behold, one of them which were with Yahushua stretched out his hand and drew his sword and struck a servant of the high priest and smote off his ear. Then said Yahushua unto them, put up again your sword into its place, for all they that take the sword shall perish with the sword. Think you that I cannot create a Abba, and he shall presently give me more than 12 legions of Malachim? How then shall the scriptures be fulfilled, that it thus must be? How will the book be fulfilled? He has to take his rest. Y'all know what we're going to get. Genesis 49 and 14. No, y'all know. In and out. Issachar, this is Genesis 49. Issachar is a strong ass counted down between two birds. And he saw that rest was good and that the land was present. And he bowed and shouldered the pair and became a servant under tribute. Of course, if you recall, Issachar means Elohim has paid me my hire. He's paid me what he owed. He gave me payment for my work. It says that Issachar saw that rest was good. Now, the word rest here is resting place or rest. It's menakua, if you recall. He saw that rest was good. Yahushua said the scriptures got to be fulfilled because I must rest. Luke 23. Because y'all should recall, if you don't, you will bring it back, you remember that Yahushua upon the state when he went up to rest. Well, I'm in the wrong chapter for that. I think that's Luke 19. He utters the same words that his father uttered in Genesis in regards to it is finished. Or I should say, he uttered the same words that he uttered in Genesis chapter 2. Let me correct myself. Yahushua said the same words that he said from the jump street. John 19 and 28. He said the same words in John 19 that he said in Genesis chapter 2 to let you know my work is finished. I'm ceased from my labors. I hope you're ready to cease from yours. Let me not say labors. It says works. Because see, we commit evil works. That's why I say because a sentence against an evil work is not executed speedily. Nevertheless, John chapter 19, verse 28. After this, Yahushua, knowing that all things were now accomplished, that the scripture might be fulfilled, say, I thirst. Now there was set a vessel full of vinegar, they filled a sponge with vinegar and put it upon his hyssop and put it to his mouth. When Yahushua therefore had received the vinegar, he said, it is finished. He bowed his head and gave up the ruach. So notice, when he said that it is finished, you see exactly what happened. He said, who got power to retain it? Let's just get that John 10 real quick. But he said it's finished. The same thing that was said in Genesis chapter 2. It's finished. He saw rest was good. Yahuwah saw rest. He saw it was good. Yahushua saw that rest was good because he said it's needful for you that I go away, that the comfort might come. It says needful for him to perish. How would your sins be remitted? Well, let's just take a look at what he said in John chapter 10, verse 17. John chapter 10, verse 17. Therefore do my Abba love me because I lay down my life that I might take it again. No man take it from me, but I lay it down of myself. I have power to lay it down, and I have power to take it again. This commandment I received in my Abba. He got power in the day of that battle. But Yahushua saw that rest was good, so he could be refreshed or to take rest. Because we know in Matthew chapter 28 that they came at the end of the Shabbat and he was gone. We also recall in John chapter 20 that he breathed into his apostles upon his resurrection. We also can recall in Romans chapter 8 how it said that it was the Ruach that raised Yahushua from the dead. So when we look at why do you think when you get immersed and you see that in the Acts of the Apostles that these people received the Ruach HaKodesh because they were taking rest. So therefore when they came from their rest, he breathed life into them. So when you look at it, and this goes back to what we were discussing last week, when you look at it, when he said, if any man defile the Shabbat by doing any work therein, he shall be put to death. This is why he said, do you not, how much sore punishment do you think that he should receive who have trampled upon the covenant of the son of Elohim and treated the blood of the Kadash covenant as an unkadash thing? Because if you say you in a Mashiach and the Mashiach in you, then you should have ceased from your works. And if you defile that, but that's another thing. We'll hit it more in depth. See, a lot of brood may not like that conversation. It is what it is. It's going to be what it's going to be. Take it up with Yahuwah. I ain't gonna, this ain't the first time we went over it. Y'all willing, it probably ain't gonna be the last. And I definitely ain't finna go back and forth with nobody. Because notice he said that Shabbat is what sanctify you. And when he blow the Ruach HaKodesh in you, what happens, everyone? It's called the spirit of separation, the breath of separation. So guess what ends up happening with you? He set you apart. The same thing that we look at with the temple. He consecrated it or set it apart. Oh man. That has caused us to sit back and to consider That has to cause us to consider. Because he said you ought to cease from your labors or your works, it said in Hebrews 4, like Elohim did from his. Are we ceasing? Nevertheless, back to Psalms 144. See, that some people ain't gonna want to hear that because that's gonna make them uncomfortable. Because they really just want to be simple. You know what I'm saying? When you look at what Yahushua told him, judgment, mercy, and faith, these are weightier matters of the law. See, they don't want to have that conversation. We want to keep it simple. See, I keep the Sabbath if I'm good. Okay, you good then. Roll with it, baby. Anybody gonna argue with you? You can have it. See, that's the difference between the men of old and the men now. You want to argue with somebody how they gonna do right. Well, you got it. You got it. Shoot, that's on you, my nigga. Do your thing, nigga. Do your thing. Psalms 144 and 10, that's what we at, right? So we say, he it is that gives salvation to the kings, and we were looking at that word, the top, which was for deliver, which is to set apart. He delivered his David, his servant, from the hurtful sword. Same way that he delivered Yahushua from a hurtful sword, because when he say the wicked are his sword, he delivered them, like we read in Psalm 26, he delivered them from the wicked by raising them from the grave, and therefore he can be able to deliver us. But let's continue. Rid me and deliver me from the hand of strange children, whose mouth speak vanity, and the right hand is a right hand of falsehood. That our sons may be plants grown up in their youth, that our daughters may be as cornerstones polished after the similitude of a palace. Remember that word for palace is a word for temple. And that similitude was dealing with pattern, form, and construction, or an image or a figure. That our daughter could be polished after the image of the temple or the image of Elohim. So when we look at that and we look at that in totality, we look at all that stuff to set that standard that in regards to Yahushua dying and resurrecting from the dead, to set the beginning of what we'll look at being polished in the similitude of a palace. And we will look at that and see how that we have to be in the figure, form, structure of the house in that regard. Henceforth is conforming to that image and everything that goes along with that. So hallelujah for Yahushua in the word. I appreciate everybody's time. I bless everybody out of the house in the name of Yahushua. Let's make sure that we keep the Shabbat in the fashion of what is actually being conveyed, which is that we stop doing what we want to do so we can get rest, so that we can be paired to the covenant of the Son, and that he can be refreshed because he put breath in us. Because what breath did Yahuwah need to have put in him? In Exodus 31, what breath he needed. So you know that was telling us something further, that breath would be put in the Lord, so the Lord could put breath in us. So let's weigh and consider. Same breath we seen him blow into Lazarus to resurrect him from the grave is the same breath that will be placed in all of us to resurrect us from the grave. He didn't have any power to retain the Ruach in the day of battle, nor have power to retain it in the day of, but Yahushua has had mastery in that day. Mastery because he did not yield to temptation. He did not yield to doing his own works, but to continue to cease and desist from his own labor. We ought to follow that example. And when we follow that example, we'll begin to see the totality of the goodness, mercies, and love of the creator of heavens and earth, the Ruler of hosts, and be able to manifest that as a light unto the world, that this crooked and perverse nation might be condemned by your very presence. Not because you're running around screaming you an Israelite, but condemned because you have trust and hope in the living Elohim, and they do not. That you obey and serve the living Elohim, and they do not. You don't have to utter a single solitary word. So blessed be the name of Yahuwah forever and always by way of Yahushua. Yahuwah willing, we'll be on reach this week. Willing on Shabbat, we'll continue down this path and gain as much understanding as Yahuwah permits. But until that time, I bid you a good day, good night, and all of those other things. So that's